Hey tech fans, welcome back to Phenom Builds. Today, we're diving into the top 5 best DSLR cameras of 2025. From game-changing features to standout performance, these are the must-have devices you need to know about. Ready to see which one fits your needs? Let's jump right in. Number 5, Canon D7500. If you still prefer DSLRs to mirrorless cameras, there are some real bargains to be found among higher-end APS-C models from a few years ago, and the Nikon D7500 is a great example. When it launched in April 2017, the D7500 was premium, enthusiast-level DSLR that borrowed a lot from what was then Nikon's flagship DX format camera, the Nikon D500. It sat below the latter and above the D780, which has now been discontinued. So what does it still bring to the table? Well, the D7500 remains a fine choice for shooting sports and action, thanks to its 8 frames per second burst shooting and generous buffer. Impressively for an enthusiast-level DSLR of its time, it also shoots 4K video at 30 frames per second. And with weather sealing and chunky handling, DSLR fans will write at home with the D7500's reassuringly weighty frame. Of course, there are also excellent mirrorless cameras available for the D7500's new price tag, including the new Nikon Z50. But if it's the handling, battery life and optical viewfinder of a DSLR you're looking for, then the D7500 now offers excellent value for money. One of the biggest shakeups the Nikon D7500 brought was its change of sensor. While both the D7100 and D7200 sported 24MP chips, as, for that matter, did the entry-level D3400 and D5600, here Nikon opted to use the slightly lower-resolution 20.9MP sensor from the D500, which, as in that camera, is teamed with Nikon's XP5 image processor. As on the D500, omitting the low-pass filter enabled Nikon to eke out that bit more detail from the 20.9MP sensor, and while it may seem quite a sacrifice to lose almost 4MP compared to the D7200's 24.2MP, the minor drop in resolution does have advantages, particularly when it comes to sensitivity. Compared to the D7200's ISO range of 100 to 25,600, the D7500's 100 to 51,200 standard offers an extra stop of flexibility, but it's the expanded range that impresses. There's a low setting of ISO 50, while the upper ceiling is a staggering ISO 1,640,000. The reality is that these upper sensitivities are likely to be pretty much unusable, but the benefits will be felt further down the sensitivity range, and if the new camera performs like the D500 it should impress in this regard. Number 4, Canon EOS 90D. A few years ago, the Canon EOS 80D was one of the best cameras around for anyone who needed a mid-range snapper that could go beyond basic shooting without adding pro-level complexity. In fact, it's still a perfectly solid DSLR even today, but in order to make the series relevant in the age of mirrorless cameras, Canon has built something more modern to fill its considerable shoes. That camera is the Canon EOS 90D, perhaps the last enthusiast-level DSLR the company will ever make. Launched alongside the Canon EOS M6 Mark II, the 90D plays the traditional strengths of DSLRs, good handling, long battery life, optical viewfinder, but adds some pretty cutting-edge specs. This includes a new sensor that brings a lot more megapixels than the 80D, 32.5MP, compared to 24.2MP, which is helpful for cropping images, plus Canon's latest imaging engine. In short, with the 90D, Canon has proven that DSLRs aren't quite ready to kick the bucket yet, and as well as being one of the best DSLR cameras, it's also still one of the best Canon cameras available. At first glance, there's not much physical difference between the EOS 80D and its successor. The innards, however, are brand spanking new, with a 32.5MP APS-C CMOS sensor taking center stage. Historically, the sensor resolution of most APS-C cameras has topped out at about 24MP, meaning the 90D, and the EOS M6 Mark II with the same sensor, offers the highest resolution found in the crop sensor class of cameras. The advantage of having this kind of resolution means you'll be able to capture more details while giving you the flexibility to crop an image during post-processing, allowing you to zoom in closer to your subject without compromising image quality. While the higher resolution is a welcome boost, it can result in more noise and images shot at higher ISOs compared to cameras in the same sensor class but lower resolutions. This happens because individual pixels have to be shrunk to fit a higher number of them in a limited space. However, it's Canon's latest Digic 8 image processor that gives the 90D a major performance boost over the 80D and its Digic 6 engine. The latest processor, which has yet to be succeeded in 2019, gives the new Snapper the ability to shoot 4K video, where the 80D topped out at just 1080p, aka Full HD, resolution. And, unlike all other Canon cameras, the new EOS R and EOS RP included, video capture uses the entire width of the 90ds sensor, a long-awaited first for the company. Videos themselves are captured in MP4 file format in either 4K UHD, 3840 by 2160, quality to a maximum 30 frames per second, in Full HD, 1920 by 1080, at up to 60 frames per second or Standard HD, 1280 by 720, at 60 frames per second, and with a maximum duration of 30 minutes. The Digic 8 processor also ups the ante when it comes to maximum burst speed and native ISO range. The former sees a jump from the 80ds 7 frames per second to a faster 10 frames per second with continuous autofocus, or 11 frames per second when using live view, while the 90D has a native ISO range of 100 to 25,600, expandable to 51,200. Unlike the 80ds native high ISO of 16,000 and maximum expansion value of 25,600. Number 3 Canon EOS 5D Mark IV. Canon's 5D series of cameras has a rich heritage. The original EOS 5D brought full-frame photography to the masses. The Mark II unleashed full HD video capture for the first time on a DSLR, and while the Mark III didn't have quite the landmark features of its predecessors, its improved AF system made it one of the most complete DSLRs of recent times, loved by enthusiasts and pros alike. Despite the range deviating a little since then, with the arrival of the 50.6MP 5DS for those wanting even more pixels, the arrival of a new generation of the 5D is a big deal. That's not quite rivaling the 36.3MP Nikon D810 or 42MP Sony Alpha 7R2, but files still come out at 6720 by 4480 pixels, meaning that if you want to print at 300 dpi the native size is just under A2 at 56.9 by 37.9 centimeters, 22.4 by 14.9 inches, while those looking for even more pixels have the option of the 50.6MP 5DS. The 5D Mark IV is also using the same latest generation sensor technology that we've seen in both the 1DX Mark II and 80D, with on-chip digital-to-analog conversion, which should deliver improved noise performance as well as broader dynamic range. That's not the whole story as far as image quality goes though, with the arrival of dual-pixel RAW technology giving photographers the capacity to fine-tune the area of maximum sharpness. With each pixel made up of 2 photodiodes, it allows for the creation of a file which contains a pair of images with 2 very slightly different focus points. You can then open the file in Canon's Digital Photo Professional software, and use image micro-adjustment to shift the focus ever so slightly, not massively, but Canon believes there's the potential to rescue some shots using this technology. As you'd expect, the file size increases dramatically, from 37 megabytes to 67 megabytes, and you will have to use Canon's rather clunky DPP software. Number 2 Nikon D780. The Nikon D780 is perhaps the best example yet of a DSLR reinventing itself for the mirrorless age. It's a very traditional-looking full-frame camera with an optical viewfinder, but underneath that old-school skin lies some of the same tech that you'll find in its cutting-edge Nikon Z6 cousin. In other words, it's something of a DSLR mirrorless hybrid. When Nikon and Canon finally relented and committed to their Z series and EOS R mirrorless systems, fans of optical viewfinders and generous battery lives were naturally worried that the days of new DSLRs were behind them. But the D780 proves that Nikon isn't abandoning the DSLR. In fact, if you have a stash of f-mount lenses or just prefer the way a DSLR handles, it might just be one of the best full-frame cameras the company has made so far. Designed to sit alongside rather than fully replace the older Nikon D750, this is Nikon's entry-level, full-frame model, sitting below the D850 and offering something for those who don't need mega-high resolution, but who still want a good all-rounder. With Nikon suggesting that it will run its mirrorless and DSLR offerings in parallel to each other, it's possible that we might see other new DSLR models with mirrorless technology, for example, an equivalent to the APS-C Nikon Z50. But if it's full-frame shooting you're after, the D780 is a very compelling new option, and is indeed one of the best DSLR cameras you can buy right now. If you've always preferred the spacious handling of a DSLR to their sometimes cramped mirrorless equivalents, then you'll be thrilled with the D780's chunky design. You get a sturdy, magnesium alloy body that's resistant to both dust and water, along with a satisfyingly chunky grip. The big range of dials and buttons also have lots of room to breathe. There's not a huge amount of difference between this and the D750, so if you're thinking of upgrading from the older model, you'll be very much at home here. The vast majority of shooting controls can be found on the right-hand side of the camera. These include the on-off switch, dials for altering shutter speed and aperture, and the I button for accessing a quick menu. You'll also see a top-plate LCD which gives you an at-a-glance view of several key settings, including ISO, aperture, shutter speed, and how many shots you've got left on your memory card. On the left-hand side you'll find the mode dial, the drive mode dial and a set of buttons which mostly relate to playback. Using an optical viewfinder is a matter of preference, but if you prefer them to electronic versions then, again, you should be pretty happy here. It's not quite as bright and clear as the one found on the D850, but if you're not comparing them side by side you're likely to be very impressed by it. Number 1 Nikon D850. The Nikon D850 is now over 3 years old, but if you're looking for a stills-focused DSLR, it remains one of the best you can buy. Back in July 2017, the D850 superseded the brilliant 36.3 MP Nikon D810 that was long loved by both pros and hobbyists. It certainly had big shoes to fill, but fill them it did, thanks to features like 7 frames per second burst shooting and excellent high ISO performance. There's no doubt that mirrorless flagships like the Sony A7R IV have since raised performance bar again for high megapixel cameras, but the Nikon D850 is now significantly cheaper than Sony's 61MP all-rounder. If you're mostly focused on stills photography, and enjoy classic DSLR benefits like handling and battery life, then the Nikon D850 is a superb, versatile all-rounder. While the D810 retained the same 36.3 MP resolution as the groundbreaking Nikon D800/D800E, it was later eclipsed by both the 50.6 MP Canon EOS 5DS and 42.2 MP Sony Alpha A7R II. The D850, though, got an all-new 45.7 MP full-frame back-illuminated sensor, BSI, which was a hefty increase in pixels over the D810, and only marginally behind the 5DS. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tech reviews and updates. If you're interested in buying any of the products we covered today, check out the links in the description below for the best deals. Let me know in the comments which one caught your eye or if you have any questions. Until next time, keep exploring the world of tech. See you in the next video.